started knitting in 2009, but I actually was a crocheter first. I never took to crochet in the way that I've really taken to knitting. I was working with youth, actually here in Winnipeg, for some professional development, and a tragedy struck the youth group, and I needed something to do to distract myself. I really liked the knit fabric. It just had so much more give to it. At the time, the types of clothes that were available, pattern-wise, for knit were much more compelling to me than what was available for crochet. And so I found some plastic needles and some acrylic yarn, made a tiny little square, and then that was pretty much it. The next thing I made was a shrug, because go big or go home, I guess. And yeah, so since 2009, I've been knitting pretty steadily. I was also working on my master's at the time, and so tried very hard not to get super obsessed with knitting, because I could tell that it would take over everything and I would not actually do my homework, but managed to finish my master's. Also gained a full-blown obsession with knitting. I was planning my wedding at the time. That's right around the time that I was transitioning from crocheting to knitting. I decided to crochet all of the women in my wedding party and the one woman in my husband's wedding party. Crocheted all of them shawls, and then ran out of time to make my own shawl. And this woman that we really, really bonded, she offered to knit me my wedding shawl, and did. We never met. She knit it. She kind of improvised the pattern between two that she already knew and sent me this gorgeous white shawl with Swarovski crystal beads in it. Quite a beautiful thing. One day I listened to a knitting podcast. I don't actually listen to too many knitting podcasts. And it was these two women, and they had this really great chemistry. And for some reason, when the episode was over, I called my sister and said, "I'm having podcasting thoughts. Are you having podcasting thoughts?" And she immediately said, "All the time, yes." And I think within 2 months, we had come up with a plan about the things that we would talk about every episode, the things we would talk about if for some reason we ran out of content, which we never have, a name, and had recorded 2 episodes. And we've been doing it for about 1.5 years now. We record every other week. It's an audio-only podcast because she's 2 hours away. Somehow I'm the sound monkey. So every other week I spend one evening recording the podcast with her, and then the next evening editing the sound, uploading it, and releasing it into the wild. We have, at this point, about 500 downloads an episode. We are Canadian urban prairie girls who also like sci-fi, fantasy, and board games, and we're glad that you're here to join us for Knitting and Geekery. There are lots of different knitting podcasts. There are tons. There are audio, there are video, there are both. And one of the things that I think sets us apart is we are sisters, but also we talk about the board games that we play and the sci-fi and the fantasy books that we're reading or listening to, because we both listen to audiobooks, the movies that we're watching, all of that kind of stuff. And so we bring that, we're geeks about yarn, but we're also, kind of more stereotypical geeks in our lives as well. And so we bring that element to it. And so other people have found us that way. So as I said, I found this knitting community when I was engaged in planning a wedding, and made some really great friendships over the years. I have traveled to, I call them yarn cons. I've traveled to various knitting events and met a number of them. Anytime I travel, whether it's for work or personal, I try to think about, do I know anybody in any of those cities that I can actually meet and connect with? It usually turns into a trip to a yarn store. Just that connection of, I've only known you as an entity online, and now all of a sudden we're actually meeting, and this connection does still exist, and it's really great. A few months ago, my husband and I decided to end our marriage, and it's a challenging time. And that community of knitters that I made while planning my wedding has a really great history of, they call it cupcaking. When somebody in the group is going through a hard time, they do something for them without letting them know, and then all of a sudden a gift will arrive on their doorstep or something like that. And all of a sudden, around Valentine's Day, I came home and I had 3 cards in the mail, and it was Valentine's Day cards from some of these friends. The next day I came home and there was 2 more. A week later I came home and I think I had 5 in the mail one day. I think about 9 or 10 total sent me Valentine's Day cards as both a housewarming into my new space, as well as a reminder that they love me and that they're thinking of me through this challenging time. It's a really warm reminder of these friends, probably about half of whom I've actually met in real life, the other of whom are virtual friends, for lack of a better term. These friends who are holding me in their hearts and caring for me. One of the things that my sister and I have done in our podcast, stemming from a post that a yarn dyer here in Canada actually made, is we've been really encouraging our listeners to think about themselves in their knitting. I'm a plus-sized woman. When I look through a pattern's projects to see how does this pattern look on somebody who looks like me, most of the pictures are just that project on the blocking mats. It's not women proudly wearing the cardigan that they've made. Or if, this breaks my heart even more, or if they are wearing it, they've cut their head off. And if you go in and you look, they're not in their pictures. What I see when I see so many pictures on blocking mats is I see women feeling like they're not allowed to be proud of the things that they've made for themselves, and it breaks my heart. And so in our podcast lately, we've been really encouraging our listeners to be in their pictures. It's been amazing to see these women who largely don't know each other in our group support each other and share openly on a public platform about some of the issues that they're having with their bodies. Some of them are sharing pictures that they're not comfortable with because their family members have told them that they look great in that picture. And I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. It's really touching to kind of see how these strangers are uplifting each other around this common craft.